to let them in. Admit. Make sure that the recording started. Good morning, Joan. Good morning, Susie.
Good morning, Rabbi. Joan had a doctor's appointment today, so he says
Oh,
hello. Sends her
well
best.
then, thank you. And good morning, Susie.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Did you get the document this week?
I finally got it. I was
Yay.
shocked. I thought you should send it to me. How are you, Rabbi?
Good. Thank God. Thank God. How are you, Mitch? Wonderful. Chaim. Doing well. Zalman.
All right.
Okay. And Baruch. Thank God. Okay. If anybody would like a cold or hot drink, you're more than welcome.
Just especially when the kids start living
Rabbi.
in the trees.
Yes, Susie.
Yeah, probably.
The rabbi at my synagogue gave such an interesting sermon. He was in Australia 50 years ago meeting with another rabbi friend of his,
Okay.
and he came back this year. But he went into about the Jewish community in Australia, and I was thinking about you.
Oh, thank you.
And I never realized, never think about a Jewish community in another continent other than ours.
Mm.
But I found it interesting. One of the things he was talking about how Australia took in the Jews during World War II, where America did not. So I thought that was really special.
Yeah, there were a lot of immigrants who came to Australia because it was the furthest place from Germany that they could get to, furthest place from Europe.
Yeah,
In
but it was
fact-
nice that they took them in where the United States did not. And then he talked about the Hasidic community, how large it was in Australia. And I was thinking about you, and I was wondering what made you decide to come to the United States.
That's a very good question. So I'm first going to throw in some history, and then I'll answer that question. There is a city called Perth on the west side of Australia, and that city actually has a Jewish community. And the reason why it has a Jewish community is because many of the European Jews who were Melbourne bound or Sydney bound didn't realize that when they stopped and they said we came to Australia, that it wasn't Melbourne. They were still on the west side of Australia, and they still had another few stops to go until they hit Melbourne. But a bunch of them got off over there. Now you have a Jewish community in Perth as well. The reason why I moved to America is because my parents moved to America when I was 16, and the reason why they moved to America is because I'm the youngest of 11 Kenohara, and most of my siblings got married and moved away and had families, and my parents would take turns every year traveling the world to see the grandkids. And then they thought, why are we traveling across the world to see them? Why don't we move closer to them? And that's what happened.
Oh, okay, very interesting.
Do your siblings live in the United States?
I have a bunch in the United States. I have one still in Australia, one in England, one in Brazil.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness
And
gracious.
Story reminds me of a joke. The end of the war, Jewish refugee survivors, they're lined up in front of the Red Cross who's trying to place them in other places. First few comes up, the Red Cross worker says, "Where would you like to go?" And he says, "New York." The second place, the second guy comes up, says, "Where would you like to go?" He says, "London." London. Third guy comes up, "Where would you like to go?" New Zealand. New Zealand? Why so far? Far from what?
Yep. Okay. So if you haven't yet made the blessing over learning of the Torah, we're going to make it together now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. This week's Torah portion is a very famous one, and a very it's a huge pivotal moment. And this week's Torah portion begins, and it was when Pharaoh sent away the nation And God didn't lead them through the quick way. He took them like a little bit longer. It wasn't yet the 40 years. It was just the backwards way. Anyways, the Jews are running away, and Pharaoh changes his mind and gathers his army to chase after them. And of course, the Jewish people end up by the sea, and then they have the whole squabble that happens at the sea, which you'll read about in my email this week. And then they get through the sea on dry land, the Egyptians drown, and the Jewish people are safe. After that, they start complaining already that they don't have any water to drink because the water was bitter, and they couldn't figure out, they couldn't understand that if God could figure out how to get them out of Egypt, he can get them water to drink. So instead of asking nicely, they started bickering and complaining. And God sends Moses to throw a bitter stick of wood into the water, and the waters became sweet and drinkable once again. And they continue, and at the end, all the way at the end of this week's Torah portion, we have the fight with Amalek. Amalek were bad people. They were antisemim, as they say in Israel, anti-Semites. People who fought with the Jews just for fighting with them, knowing that they would lose the war. Everybody saw, the entire world was reeling with shock after hearing the news on Monday morning of what happened when the Jewish people left Egypt, which was a impossible feat. Not even one single captive had ever been able to leave from Egypt, and here you had millions of people just walking out without any issues. And everybody was afraid to start with the Jews. These people came and they messed with the Jewish people. So we're going to learn a little bit.
Where were they from?
They were, the nation was called Amalek. Where did they live? Possibly in the land of Canaan, which is today Israel. We're going to learn a little bit about the story, and then we're going to learn about the spiritual significance of it. Also, I would be remiss if I did not mention that today is a very special day that we spoke about. When did we speak about it? Mentioned it on Shabbos. Today is Yud Shvat, the 10th day of Shvat, which is the day that the Lubavitcher Rebbe agreed to lead Chabad into the future. So it is a very special day, an auspicious day. Okay. We're going to learn today about the danger of inspiration and how to deal with the pitfall that inspiration brings. Inspiration is very important. Without inspiration, everything becomes a lot harder to do. But we come sometimes for great inspiration, and then the inspiration cools off and we lose everything. We're back to square one. They lived in the area of Eilat. Interesting.
Southernmost point of Eretz Israel. Yeah.
Sorry?
Southernmost point.
Yeah. They apparently, the Gazans did not come up with the tunnel idea on their own. Apparently, they would dig tunnels underneath where they saw the path of the Jewish people was going to go. And when the Jewish people were surrounded by their clouds of glory, feeling invincible, when the Jewish people passed on top of them, they emerged from these tunnels and from underneath the ground and attacked the Jewish people from within. Okay, let's look inside source number one. Susie, it's been a while since we heard you. Would you like to read for us source number one about the story of the battle with Amalek?
Is that how you pronounce his name, Amalek?
Amalek, yeah.
Amalek came and fought with the Israelites in Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us and go out to battle." What is that again? Amalek? Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him and went out to battle Amalek. Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. When Moses raised his hand, the Israelites prevailed. But when he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. Moses' hands became heavy, so they took a stone and placed it under him, and he sat upon it. Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on each side, so that his hands remained steady in faith until sunset. Joshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword.
Okay. Thank you. So Moses tells Joshua, go fight them. I will fight the spiritual war. I will raise my hand so that heavenward, so that everybody, as they are fighting, they will glance up and they will remember that our fighting power comes from God, and we will focus on God. However, this seems to be just another day in the history of the Jewish people. It seems to be just a very simple daily occurrence for the Jewish people. They fight us, they try to kill us, God saves us, and we move on. However, what happened over here is a very different kind of response. And in source number 2, the verse continues and the Torah portion ends. Baruch, would you like to read for us source number 2?
God said to Moshe, write this as a remembrance in the book, the Torah, and repeat it in Joshua's ears. For I will totally obliterate the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Moshe built an altar and called it, God is my miracle. He said, the hand is on God's throne. God will be at war with Amalek for all generations.
Okay. So let's look at source number 3. Zalman, would you like to read for us source number 3? This is from Deuteronomy, all the way at the end of the Torah, where Moses is giving his last speech to the Jewish people. One of the things that he mentions is, go ahead, source number 3.
Remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you were going out of Egypt, when they chanced upon you en route and struck down your appendage, all the feeble ones behind you, while you were exhausted and wearied, and they had no fear of God. When God has given you repose from all your enemies around, in the land that God is giving you as a territory to inherit, you shall obliterate the memory of Moloch from beneath the sky. Do not forget.
Okay. Thank you, Zalman. And Chaim, if we look in Maimonides, the way he codifies this mitzvah, and this is also one of the mitzvahs that we say in the 6 remembrances, which we remember every day. How does he codify it, Chaim? Source number 4.
We are commanded to remember what Amalek did to us and how they instigated and hate them constantly. We must encourage our nation to hate Amalek. So the mitzvah is not forgotten and the hatred does not subside.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
God is obliterating the memory of Moloch.
Mm-hmm.
We must remember the Hayya Moloch so that the mitzvah is not forgotten.
Very good question. Zalman is asking a phenomenal question. How can you tell us, on the one hand, God is saying that he will obliterate the memory of Amalek, and how does he obliterate the memory of Amalek by telling us to think about them every single day? What kind of obliteration is that? It's a good question. And if I'm remembering correctly, the answer is that we're not remembering them in a positive way at all. We are, every time we remember them, there's an expression in Judaism and Jewish literature, and it's come out into Yiddish as well. Yimach Shemam. Yimach Shemam literally means, may their name be obliterated. You may have heard of people referring to the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, or to Amalek as well, or Haman, Yimach Shemoy. Evil people like Stalin, we say, Yimach Shemoy. Anytime we talk about someone who is evil, we talk about them in a disgraceful way and a disdainful way. That we should never forget what they did to us, and we should actively have negative feelings and connotations towards them. So what are they, lest we forget? Sorry, when we say Haman, we do the crackers. Exactly.
We're obliterating.
We're obliterating his name, right? So we say his name and then we spit, right?
Doesn't say curse his name, doesn't say remember his infamy.
It says obliterate his name. Yes. I do remember learning about this, and there is a good answer, and I will have to look it up and get back to you. Reminds me of a joke that I've said before, but I'll say it again because it's a good one. This guy finally gets his exit visa to leave from Russia, USSR, and he gets to the customs on his way out, and they come and they see a golden bust of Stalin's face. He says, "What's this?" And they said, "Don't." The Jewish guy Chaim, he says, "Don't ask what is this. Ask who is this. This is Stalin, and every morning I will wake up and look at Stalin and thank Father Stalin and Mother Russia for the wonderful years that I had." Blah blah blah. They said, "Okay." You know. When he lands in Ben Gurion Airport, he gets to customs, and the official looks at him and says, "What is this?" And he says, "Don't ask what is this. Ask who is this. This is Stalin, and every morning when I wake up, I will spit on his face, and I will curse him for everything that he's done for me and for my family and for the Jewish people and for the Jewish religion." Says, "Okay, can come through." He gets to his grandson's home in Tel Aviv, and he's unpacking his stuff, and his grandson sees this golden bust of someone he doesn't recognize. He says, "Who is this?" He says, "Don't ask who is this. Ask what is this. It's 5 kilos of solid gold." L'chaim. So we are commanded to mention his name with obliteration whenever we mention it, and to constantly fan the fire of animosity and hatred toward this people. And the question is going to be very simple. What was so bad about Amalek? Why were they worse than anyone else? Were they worse than the Egyptians who enslaved us and murdered our children for hundreds of years? Were they worse than anyone else who fought with us and tormented us? This was a one-day battle. Why the vengeance? There must be something deeper going on over here. And in fact, of course, there is. Page number 2, the Rebbe, chutzpah without reason. Before we move on, is everyone familiar with the word chutzpah?
Of course.
Good. Now I'm going to ask you a hard question. How would you translate chutzpah?
Nerve, gall.
Nerve, gall, insolence. Sorry?
Yeah, you have chutzpah.
You have chutzpah. Yeah, some of these Yiddish words we just can't translate.
A combination of gall and arrogance.
Okay.
Okay. Mm.
I think we all grew up with that word, chutzpah.
Good. I mean, not good, but yes.
Remember, there
Okay.
was a board game called.
There was a board game called chutzpah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to find that one.
In their travels back to the promised land, yeah, they must have come across other tribes too that I'm sure didn't welcome them with flowers, garlands, and oh, yeah. So why?
Yeah, they weren't the first and they weren't the last. And why are we singling them out? So over here we have chutzpah without reason. The meaning of the mitzvah to remember what Amalek did to you can be explained as follows. The defining trait of Amalek is irrational chutzpah, brazenness, wielding power without a mandate. Does that sound familiar to any people that we know today who just want to kill the Jews for no reason other than to kill the Jews? Amalek's opposition to the Jewish people was not based on any rational calculation. The Jews had not come to wage war against Amalek, unlike the 7 nations who had the concern of they are coming to destroy us and possess our land. The people who lived in Israel at the time, you could understand why they came out to war, because they didn't want to lose their homes and everything and possessions. Page number 3, rather, Amalek came to instigate a needless war on their own initiative. motivated by resentment of the Jewish people's greatness and of the signs and wonders of the exodus from Egypt and the splitting of the sea. I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask, didn't we just say that they lived in the region of Eilat? Eilat is in which country?
Israel.
Now it's in Israel. So how could we say that they should not have been worried about the Jewish people? If it's part of Israel, then they shouldn't have been worried about the Jewish people.
You're going from Egypt to Israel.
But if you're conquering the entire land of Israel, then
What did they get considered that? I mean, kind of.
so
Was it-
Eilat is not part of biblical Israel.
That's what I was about to
Yeah.
say. It didn't really belong to any particular tribe.
Eilat was not part of Israel, which is
Right.
why
That's really not on the route to Israel.
I mean, but they conquered the entire Israel at some point or other, right? They
But I mean,
spent 7 years conquering
for
the
the
land.
escaped slaves, going from Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, going up to Jerusalem.
Fine,
Now that's kind of a lot, like way over
there. Yeah. So it's not actually it's not part of the Jewish Israel. It's owned by the Israelis today, but it's not part of the part of Israel. Therefore, the laws that apply, the Jewish law, for example, the laws of tithing and produce that we've spoken about before in the Talmud class extensively, do not apply to fruits that are grown in that region. Okay, so Amalek came like the class bully to just mess around for no reason. Amalek possessed no special qualities, neither military strength nor wealth or anything else. They were lowly and contemptible. Sounds like the people who live in Gaza today. Not only in the eyes of others, but even in their own eyes. Right? There's a reason why they're there. I haven't personally verified this, but apparently if you speak to the Arabs and the Muslims, they do not like these people. And that's why they are left on their own to do their own thing, and we're not welcomed with open arms. No, I'm talking about the people who live in Gaza. But it's a similar concept, right? And nevertheless, they dared to rise and fight the Jewish people. This is something entirely irrational and unfathomable. Amalek came just to make a problem. They didn't have any reason to fight the Jewish people, but they came to fight the Jewish people without any cause. Also,
maybe they want to steal. I mean, the Hindus took all the wealth of Egypt with them, so they had a lot of wealth with jewels and gold and such.
Okay. Maybe they wanted some of the spoils.
Yeah.
So if they would have had a great military or great strategy and they thought that they would win, so then that would make sense. But over here, they knew that they weren't going to win. They were definitely they weren't a great people in any form, and definitely nothing in comparison to Egypt.
I mean, a bunch of ex-slaves.
They defeated Egypt.
Yeah.
And by that time, don't forget the old generation slowly passed, and it's the new generation of Joshua.
No, this is right in the beginning of the Jewish people coming into the.
This is the beginning. Oh, okay.
But these were hard and they built the pyramids, right?
No, pyramids were already built by the time the Jews got there.
Fine. So it's a myth that the Jews built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pyramids are older than the Jews.
Good to know.
Isn't it interesting? We live closer to the Romans than the Romans lived to the building of the pyramids. The pyramids were already 3,000 years old by the time Caesar came up.
It's incredible how, when we think about the world and the large scheme of things, how tiny and insignificant we are. We feel like there's so much going on, but when we zoom out and look at history, we are but a fleeting moment.
By the way, what's the temperature?
It's getting a
warm.
little hot. Okay.
Warm.
Yeah. We could definitely turn the air conditioning cooler.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we're still here. I just
Up
turned the air
until
conditioning a little
last
cooler.
year,
Okay, I thought I lost you.
the man who died, who was the grandson, not great grandson or great great grandson, the grandson of President Tyler, who was 10th president,
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
the 10th. Apparently, Tyler, the ex-president, had some kids when he was in the 70s,
Wow.
and then his youngest son also followed this stuff and had his other kids, 70s, and that son, the grandson, recently died at the age sometime in his 90s.
Wow. Yeah. It's we think of America as such a well-established country, and we have, but if you think about it, we're 250 something year. Or no, this year's 250th year of the Navy, at least.
250, the Declaration of Independence, but the country really began Constitution,
Right.
which was in 1785.
Was that 6 years early? No,
Later.
later. Okay. Yeah, so the Declaration of Independence
13
is
years
200
later.
250 years old. And we think about the temple that stood for over 400 years. But we think about it in history, and this is something that is so fascinating to me to see. And I always had this theory, and I think I'm starting to see it more. And we speak about this a lot in terms of getting the kids to shul, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, to Yom Kippur, getting kids to services, and why don't they feel it the way that we felt it? But for kids who grew up, or for people who lived through the Holocaust, it's an extremely huge deal. For kids who are the children of Holocaust survivors, it's also a very big deal. For the grandkids, 9/11 is a bigger deal than the Holocaust because it's current history, and the Holocaust is history. And then you have kids who are brought up today.
And I don't remember 9/11 either.
They were born after 9/11, and so for them, 9/11 and the Holocaust and the destruction of the temple is all one category. It's all ancient history.
The one who was born on 9/11, now 24 years old, young adult,
Yeah,
out there working, probably getting married.
yeah. Could you imagine? They don't even know. And if they learn about it, it's history. It's not an event that shook their lives. It's history. And, the Romans came, the Romans went. The towers were built, the towers came down. It's just fascinating to think of it in these terms, and the evolution of society, and how things that are such pivotal moments in our lives might not mean so much to the next generation.
Years since I graduated high school. That I don't believe it. Even though I know it's true, I still look.
Right, like when you realize that 1970 was closer to 1920 than to 2025.
Yeah.
It's right. So when we make our Judaism about the pivotal moments in our lives instead of about the pivotal moments in our children's lives, or about the negative experiences instead of the beautiful experiences, we need to be focusing more on the exciting, fun, and meaningful experiences, and the experiences that are meaningful and pivotal to the children's lives.
1970 is supposed to be of World War II, as we are now to 9/11. was by Mr. Did 71.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So,
Is the paper yesterday? Couldn't believe it. I saw that. Well, yesterday was also remember
right.
story about a woman who was born in the concentration camp in Forest of 45.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it that this woman was pregnant while being in Ferguson, and she somehow managed to bring the pregnancy to term and hide the baby for a month. And she was like the youngest, considered the youngest Holocaust survivor. Yeah, but I couldn't believe that it could be done. I wouldn't have believed it.
Right. And she's now already 80 years old.
Yeah. She's the youngest.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was amazing how this woman was starving, actually bring a pregnancy to term.
Right.
They said that she was able to hide it because a lot of the patients, a lot of the prisoners had swollen bellies. So,
Wow.
still,
I was watching something on the Jewish channel about remembrance of Auschwitz. It was 80 years old, be 81 years old now, of the people being liberated. And they had a lot of people coming on who did survive, and they're just amazing how they looked at what they went through and how they look at life. One woman said, "We were not victims, and we have to keep on looking forward and living life." And I just marvel at these people, and they're all very successful. I don't know how they put their heads down at night and close their eyes and think about what they went through and what they saw other people go
But I think it's even more remarkable.
through. It's just
Even
amazing.
more than
For 53 years, I've read every survivor's book, and I just
liberate.
well, it was only like a month before. There was a lot of
Yeah. Thank you,
confusion,
Susie.
and the other, a lot of the soldiers, a lot of the soldiers were coming and going, and there was a whole bunch of confusion. But the Allies and the other prisoners participated. And it was only for like a month. It was like 4
I don't
months.
understand why we're such hated since we've been on this earth, and even today with all this anti-Semitism. I've experienced a lot of anti-Semitism in my life, and I just by young people, not my peers, my colleagues. I just don't understand it. Why we're hated so much.
So
It's
I have a good idea. I have a good idea. The good idea is that we should learn more Torah, do more mitzvahs. Mashiach will come, and then we'll ask God, and he better have a good answer for us.
I don't know.
Because
It goes
I
on and
definitely
on.
don't.
It goes on, and I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
I really do.
Another, it was an album. We had that album. You don't have to be Jewish. It was an
Oh, yes.
album from like
Oh,
the
yes.
early '60s.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And
And
to my
What did he
brother-in-law, Louis, who told me that I would never remember him in my will.
Hello.
Hello, Louis.
Yeah, right. There's also another one, Man Dies, goes up to God. Lord, I have been chosen by your people below to ask you a question. Yes, my son. Is it true that we are the chosen people? Yes, my son, you are the chosen people. Well, then I have a request from the down below. Would you mind choosing someone else for a change?
Yeah, the chosen people for hatred. That's what we are.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to look at it. But if we understand who we are and what we are, there's a lot of beauty here. We have an extremely rich tradition. We have a Torah which is, when we study it, connecting us with God in a way that nothing else can. We have mitzvahs that can connect us with God and change the world around us. And there's a lot of positivity to being Jewish. If our Judaism is the sum total of the way some lowlives think of us, then yeah, I think you're right. But there's so much more to Judaism.
Yeah, but how do people that are
That's me.
anti-Semitic and they believe in Jesus, I mean, don't they realize that he was Jewish? That's what astounds me. I asked some of my Christian friends, I said, I don't understand it. You're worshiping a Jewish man. And they can't give me any answers about that. So
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
There are other things that I'm looking to understand before I try to understand that, because I don't think there's much to understand that. I try to keep my brain power focused on the things that I can change. I'll leave this part of the conversation with the following beautiful story. That there was a rabbi, and when he was old, he called around his family and he said to them, he said, when I was young, I thought I could change the world. I got a little older, I got a little wiser. I thought maybe I can change my country. I got a little older, I got a little wiser. I thought maybe I can change my city. I got a little older, I got a little wiser. I thought maybe I can change my family. I got a little older, I got a little wiser. I thought maybe I can change myself. But if when I was younger I would have changed myself, I might have influenced my family. They might have influenced my neighborhood. They might have influenced my city, who might have influenced my country, and I might have been able to have an influence on the entire world. So it's a whole different way of looking at things.
Well, that's why youth is wasted on the young.
Yes, yes. Page number 3 towards the bottom. At first glance, this is puzzling. Why? Oh, 1 second. Where did I? Did I? Yeah. Okay. At first glance, this is puzzling. Why is there such a strong warning about Amalek, such an emphasis to remember what Amalek did to you? With regard to the other nations, whose opposition was grounded in reason, there is a need for warning that if someone comes and claims such and such, we should not be impressed, but should respond in such and such a way. In other words, some people come with claims of is Judaism the true religion, or the Jewish people do they belong in the land of Israel, or other such things, claims that come with reason. Well, then it's important to know and to understand the history, to understand the context, and to know how to respond to them. But why is there need for such an emphatic warning about the opposition of Amalek when it is something that has no place in logic at all? Why do we have to even get involved? Why do we have to remember what Amalek did? What's the lesson here for us? What is going on? So, if we look at the Kabbalistic side of things, the 7 nations of the land of Canaan, the 7 nations that needed to be destroyed, are represented by are representative of the 7 negative way that our character traits can be expressed. According to the Kabbalah, our character is made up of 7 main emotive attributes, which we've discussed in the past, starting off with kindness and severity, the right side and the left side, the side of giving and extending and moving out, or the side of restricting, holding back, and staying within. So these can all be done in the positive way, or they can all be done in a negative way. So these 7 nations that come and attack us and try to persuade us to leave away from God and to do things that God does not want, for example, a love towards cheeseburgers as opposed to a love of the Torah. So that is something that I understand that I have to combat and I have to work against. However, when there's something without even any rhyme or reason, why do I need to get involved? And why do I need to have such a strong warning of how to fight it? Page number 4. There is a verse that says Amalek is the first of the nations. Hasidus explains this verse to mean that Amalek is the root and starting point of all the nations, meaning, in terms of divine service, all of our negative character traits that we were saying was symbolized by those who were taking charge of Israel at the time. And first and foremost comes Amalek, the root of all evil. Asher Karcha. What does that mean? More specifically, Amalek's effect is described by the phrase Asher Karcha, which literally means that they met you or happened upon you, right? Who happened upon you. But the word um, Karcha can also be translated from the word kar. Kar means cold, like it is today outside. So when we look at the issue of what they did, the simple reading of the verse is, remember Amalek, who chanced upon you in the desert and made problems for you. But this verse can also be read, Amalek, who cooled you off. Thus, the verse is saying that Amalek cooled off your heart. Before this, the nations of the world were afraid to fight you. Then this one came, took the first step, and showed others that it could be done. This is illustrated by the parable of a boiling bath into which no person dares enter. When one reckless person jumps in, even though he is scalded, he cools it off for the others. This person shows it's not such a boiling bath and nothing to be concerned about. This is why the Jewish people experienced all future wars, following their original state, in which, when they had come out of Egypt, what happened? The chiefs of Edom were struck with terror, terror upon those who were far, fear upon those who were near. Terror and trembling came in front of the Jewish people, and nobody was uh, brazen enough, no one had the chutzpah to even try starting with them after seeing what had happened when the Jewish people left Egypt. For this, and what happened is that now Amalek came and started up with the Jewish people. They lost terribly, but what they did is they removed that boundary, that fear and awe of the Jewish people. For this reason, we must be especially careful not to give Amalek any foothold, since they are the root and starting point from which all later undesirable developments emerge. So, this happens in our lives as well. We have moments of clarity where we understand and we feel God in our lives. Similar to, in I guess, contextually almost, or as a euphemism, right? Similar to the Jewish people, where how they were right after they left the land of Egypt. They saw God face to face by the splitting of the sea. They're receiving the Torah. And there's a certain clarity and closeness and connection to God. Sometimes something happens to us, a miracle, whether we're saved by a small swerve that the car didn't hit us, or whether there was something that happened in the workplace or in our own lives, something that is clearly God watching out for us, and we feel so close and we feel so connected. Or maybe we just woke up one day and felt that way, and it's beautiful, and we realize that there's so much more to life and so much more to get involved with. But then something happens. We all know the story of the guy who's late to his meeting in Manhattan. $1 million deal. Well, today $1 million is not much. $500 million deal, and he can't find a parking spot. And he says, "God, if you find me a parking spot, I'll give 10% of my profits to charity." And right then, a car pulls out, and he pulls into a spot right in front of the building. He runs upstairs, he makes it in, and he says, "God, then don't worry about it. I found one on my own." Right? So we all have those moments of clarity, and then it wasn't such a miracle. It's not such a big deal. Don't be so excited. It wasn't really a miracle that happened. You just got a good doctor. It wasn't a miracle that God did for you. You put your money in a stock and the stock performed well. You worked hard on everything and you're seeing the results. And why does this part of us try to do that? Because there is a part of us which has a special job. And the special job of this part within us is to try and distract us from the service of God. And the way that it starts is by making sure we're not excited. Because if we're excited about God and if we are passionate about what we're doing, then the evil inclination, right? The inclination to do evil that is within us doesn't stand much of a chance. Because while we're excited about God, it's much harder for us to slip in sin. So the first thing he does is to make sure we don't get too excited and make sure that we don't do extra mitzvahs because of this divine revelation we just experienced. And that is why Amalek is the root of all evil. That is why we have to get rid of it. What this symbolizes is the cooling off and making us lose our passion for God. That is the worst of the worst. We have to make sure to get ourselves excited and to stay excited and passionate for God. This was said at a Farbrengen, and there was another talk in the same Farbrengen, continuing on the same theme. Mitch, would you like to read for us source number 5?
Amalek is Amalek, the Amel, effort of the dark forces, Philippa. Amalek's effort is to prevent a divine revelation from having an impact below. The efforts are to hide the divine light.
Thank you.
Is that like a person or
A nation. Well, it's a nation that started with a person. So, just like we are the children of Israel, starting from Jacob, who was called Israel. We must therefore be especially careful not to give Amalek any foothold, since it is the root and starting point from which all later undesirable developments emerge. We can add that when Amalek jumped into the boiling bath, they themselves were scolded. Despite all this, at the very first opportunity, Amalek returned to wage war once again against the Jewish people. As the verse states, and the Canaanite herd who dwelled in the south, and that refers to Amalek, and he fought against Israel. This underscores even more how cautious we must be about Amalek, and this is also the lesson for every time and every place. Remember what Amalek did to you. We must know that we live in a world in which there is an Amalek force, irrational chutzpah, unauthorized rule, devoid of reason or logic. Even after it is scolded and suffers defeat, it returns and fights again. Therefore, we must be especially vigilant against it. And this is on the world at large, and we see this time and again, and this is also within our own selves. So how do we overcome Amalek? We overcome Amalek by becoming a Moses man. Heard of Minutemen? Now we're talking about Moses men. Overcoming Amalek, page number 6. The antidote to Amalek is specified in the verse, and Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us. What is the meaning of choose men for us? The war with Amalek was fought by Joshua, as it is written, and go out to battle in the singular. He said, you go out to battle, not we're going out to battle, because Moses himself remained at the top of the hill praying to God. And Joshua was the one who led the war. For this reason, it also says, choose for us in the singular, because Joshua was the one who was going to choose the men who would fight. If that's the case, then why does the verse say, choose men for us in the plural? If Joshua is the one doing the choosing, and Joshua is the one doing the fighting, then why is Moses getting himself involved over here? Why is he saying choose men for us? He should say go choose men for you and fight this war. The Alter Rebbe explains in Torah Or that to wage the war against Amalek, Moses men are required. What are Moses men? People who endeavor and ensure that all aspects of their conduct are in accordance with Moses' instructions, beginning with the study of the Torah, about which the verse states, remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. So in order to withstand the temptations and the pressures from within and from without, we must become Moses men. We must become men and women of whom Moses would be proud. As mentioned above, the war with Amalek was fought in a place called Rephidim, which alludes to the Jewish people having weakened their hands. Rephidim stands for Rafu Yedehem. The Jewish people became lax from the words of the Torah. They weren't as involved as they should have been in the study of the Torah. The message is clear: by strengthening ourselves in Torah study, page number 7, and especially by toiling in Torah study, not just reading, but thinking, churning over, contemplating until we come to an understanding, the toil of Torah is what cancels out the toil of Amalek. So the first thing we need to do is learn more Torah and do more mitzvahs. Become a person of Moses, a man or woman of Moses. Second thing is not only reading words of Torah, but toiling until we understand them in the deepest way that we can. And that will get rid of all of the toil that Amalek tries to throw against us. Submission obliterates Amalek. In addition, there is also the precise wording choice. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. This refers to Torah study, which involves intellectual understanding. As the verse states, for it is your wisdom and knowledge in the eyes of the nation. Intellectual understanding requires that a person express and assert themselves. You need to be understanding. You can't just take it as fact like 2 + 2 = 4. If we're asking you to understand things, you're not just reciting facts and repeating words. You have to actually understand it. But at the same time, a feeling of self-nullification, or as we said, self-effacement and submission is also required. We have to understand that the Torah is above us and we are trying to reach the Torah. Not that the Torah is below us and whatever fits with us, we accept. We have to understand that we are a servant of the Torah and a servant of God. And we have to toil and understand until we understand as much as we can. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. It is specifically through the self-nullification of Moses, my servant, that we reach a true exaltedness. Self-exaltedness, like a king without a crown, in a manner that transcends reason and understanding. This also leads to the obliteration of Amalek. This will first be achieved in the personal divine service of every Jew, and then in the literal sense with the coming of our righteous Mashiach. At the time of the promise, I will utterly obliterate the memory of Amalek, will be realized, and the kingdom shall belong to the Lord. May it be very soon. Today, in a global sense also, we experience this Amalek in a very personal way, and in a way that we can all see clearly. Over the past 2 years, since October 7th, there have been miracle after miracle that no one could have imagined. The rapid collapse of Hezbollah, the quiet disappearance of Assad, the 12-day war in Iran, and many other events, very clear and open miracles, the likes of which no one in the world could have predicted, and all of that with minimal losses. Indeed, when these events occurred, everyone felt that this is the hand of God. The point is that after, sorry.
Are you still there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Um, okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
I lost you. I just got disconnected.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That was an important phone call that I had to take, but I hope I was able to help. Anyways, we're back here. So we see these incredible miracles, and then the next day, all of a sudden, we're back to square one, and the same old us, the same old cynical us. That is Amalek. Instead of taking the impetus of seeing these miracles to remember that there is a God who is here, who cares about us, and who is protecting us, and to strive to get closer to Him by taking on additional times of Torah study or additional mitzvahs to do, we go back to the same old things that we were doing before. That is Amalek. During the Gulf War in the year of 1991, the Jewish people were in a similar situation. There were wars between global powers, and there was fear of the worst. And yet, and I don't think we have time. It was a very funny comedy routine. A guy, he says, is an Israeli comedian. He's like, I was in school. It was 1991, and we was afraid that um, Saddam Hussein is going to throw mustard juice on us. What? There's mustard gas, the chemical warfare. Like they were scared they was going to throw mustard on us, like we have hot dogs or something. Anyways, yet in practice, events unfolded quickly. The enemy was defeated almost without any losses in the land of Israel, and the war ended earlier than expected on the day of Purim. In a public letter that the Rebbe published about 10 days after the Gulf War ended, the Rebbe wrote like this. This is on page number 8. Greeting and blessing. As we approach the holiday of Purim, a time of miracles in those days and in our time, it is an appropriate time to pay attention to the great miracles that occurred in recent days. These are open miracles, perceived not only by the Jewish people, but by all nations. A great miracle for the good of the Jewish people and the world at large. And it's a long letter, but further in this letter, the Rebbe detailed some of the miracles. A. It would have been expected for this war to draw in many nations and further inflame matters into a world war, God forbid. However, miraculously, not only was a world war prevented, but the war that broke out subsided. B. Despite all signs pointing to a difficult, protracted war that would require a massive army with sophisticated weaponry, the war was over in a very short time. C. This stunning victory prevented great bloodshed among other nations as well, and the enemy even freed past POWs. The Rebbe adds, moreover, those familiar with the goings-on behind the scenes, who have access to classified information, understand the magnitude of these miracles. Apparently the Rebbe had, not apparently, it's very, very clear and obvious to everyone and anyone who spoke to the Rebbe who was from the military, understood that the Rebbe knew and was privy to great deal of military intelligence, both from Israel and abroad. And the Rebbe is saying that these are the miracles that everybody knows. But what was really going on and the magnitude of these miracles is only really understood by people who have access to classified information and behind the scenes conversations. In this letter, the Rebbe emphasizes the same point that we were studying in the lesson, that we must recognize the revelation of godliness expressed in a miracle and internalize it. We must not allow Amalek to cool us off or ignore the miracles that God performs for us. Key points. In our Torah reading, Amalek initiates a war against the Jewish people, and afterward, God commands the memory of Amalek to be completely erased. Page number 9. Amalek's brazenness was exceptional. He went to war without any reason or claim. Moreover, he dared fight the Jewish people who had just defeated a massive superpower, despite having no military or political advantage of their own. In doing so, they were the first to break the barrier of fear and open the way for other nations to fight against Israel. This raises the question, why is the warning against Amalek so severe? In what way is he more dangerous than the other nations? Unlike other peoples who fought Israel for rational reasons, and could therefore persuade, Amalek opposed Israel without reason or understanding. Chassidus explains that Amalek is the root of all the nations, meaning the root of the negative traits within the human soul. His effect is to cool a person's spiritual excitement, whether from miracles or moments of holiness. From this indifference, the door opens to a general spiritual decline. The way to overcome Amalek is to belong to the men of Moses, to walk in Moses' path, first and foremost through Torah study, which has the power to protect a person from the apathy of Amalek. Takeaway. Each of us experiences at some point in life an instant of divine providence, one that has no explanation other than the involvement of God's providence. Let us take it upon ourselves to share that experience with friends and family and allow them as well to taste the spiritual awakening that came to us as a result of that special moment of divine providence, divine connection, and clarity. L'chaim, before we finish the recording, this Shabbos is a very special Shabbos. My father is, God willing, going to be here from California, and we will be having a special Kiddush welcoming our new baby, Malka Charna. And if we are lucky and we can find enough sweaters and blankets, God willing, she will be here as well to join us. Services will begin at 10 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Shabbos morning, and the Kiddush will be at 12:30. Will you guys, Zama, will you be here for a minyan?
Yeah.
Okay, and Chaim. Wonderful. Okay, so far we're 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 men for a minyan so far, so we're doing pretty good. Joan and Susie, we'd love to see you guys, even if for a few minutes. The Kiddush, the services will start at 10. The Kiddush will be at around 12:30. A very good Shabbos. Looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you, Joan and Susie, for joining us.
The constellation, a real call last.
Yeah, you too, Rabbi.